Okay, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year pagkatapos nito. Meron pa tayong isa, sa 17, tama ba? Ay, oo, meron pa. Meron pa, sabi sa school. Meron pa tayong isa, yun sa Friday, hanggang Friday pa yung klase. Ayan. Kasasabi lang sa, sa forum. Okay. So, today, tayo ay cover natin ang operating system. Ayan, operating system. At saka number system. Ayan. So, try to accomplish those two. Tapos, yung inyo namang midterms, wala na, no? Kasi ang pinili natin is makapag-output tayo ng project sa assembly, which is sinisimulan na natin. Ayan. Okay. Ayan. Okay, so let's start. So, let's start, class. Ayan. Magandang hapon at magandang magpapasko na. No? Simulan na natin ang ating klase. Pakinggan natin dahil ang ating has something to do with operating system. Now, let's do a comparison dun sa mga OS, no? So, this is between Mac and PC. So, Mac OS X, and Windows. Ayan. Comparison. Tinsang pag-uusapan natin ay OS. Ayan. I-share ko lang yung video. Okay. Ayan. Share. 31. Sakto yung pasok ng isa. Ayan. Okay. Nakikita nyo ba yung screen ko? Nakalagay Dollar Shave Club.
Yes, po.
Okay. So, pakinggan natin to.
For a special $5 starter set. When we talk about PCs, we mean personal computer, which is quite a broad term. After all, your smartphone or laptop or even your calculator are all kinds of personal computers. But the term we use now originally meant IBM PC compatible, and this related to IBM's computers that could run certain operating systems. Nowadays, we tend to think of PCs as computers that run operating systems such as Windows or Linux, and those computers have been separated from Macintosh computers. But in terms of hardware these days, we're not talking chalk and cheese. The differences are more like camembert and cheddar. For the record, we think Macs are the former in this analogy, and of course some people prefer one over the other. But why? Today we will look at some of the reasons, as well as delve into some statistics, in this episode of the infographic show, Mac versus PC. So the first statistic we will look at tells us that Windows OS is way out in front in terms of market share. It currently has a massive 88.53% share of the global market. Mac OS has 8.75%. Linux, meanwhile, is third at 2.27%. Though Microsoft has been feverishly pushing people to use its latest operating system, Windows 10, more users around the world are still on Windows 7. But Windows 10 is catching up and should be in front by 2020. As for how many people in the world are currently using Mac compared to PC, it's said that over 1 billion people in 2017 were actively using Windows, with about 400 million of those people using Windows 10. Apple, on the other hand, said that total Mac users was about 100 million. If so many people are fond of Apple's OS, why are so few people using it? Well, the cost for one thing. A couple of years ago, the average Mac cost around $1,300. This was compared to the $600 the average person spent on a PC. If we look at Apple's new top-of-the-line 15-inch MacBook Pro, the price is $2,799. Meanwhile, Microsoft's Surface Book costs around the same, and there are plenty of other high-end laptops out there, but Apple doesn't exactly have a bargain basement the way PC does. If we're talking about desktops, the iMac Pro is currently on sale for $4,999. Again, there are PC desktops out there that cost around the same amount of money, such as Microsoft Surface Studio, but there are many budget desktops that the average person can afford, while the smallest, cheapest iMac is still around $1,300. But maybe you're a gamer. We looked at lists of best gaming desktop computers in 2018, and none of Apple's machines were listed. Many of the best gaming machines were anywhere from $900 to $5,000, with some reviewers saying the best of the budget gaming PCs was the Dell XPS Tower SE at around $550. The website TechAdvisor sums it up like this for gaming regarding Mac versus PC. This category isn't even close. If you like gaming, then a Windows PC is hands down the better choice over a Mac. And the title of a 2017 article by Digital Trends should be answer enough. Why gaming on Mac OS is dead forever and never coming back. If you look at the popular gaming service Steam's gaming statistics for March 2018, the numbers show that around 99% of gamers were using Windows, indicating that the vast majority of gamers seem to prefer PC. What this tells us is what you already probably know. Apple's machines are sleek and look beautiful, but if you are a budget-minded person, there will likely always be a cheaper PC out there that is just as good in terms of what it can do. If you are a gamer, a designer, or just someone who streams TV and writes emails, you can find a Windows PC as good as any Mac that will cost you less money. What it often boils down to is what operating system you prefer or what you have just gotten used to. Users become fluent in things like keyboard shortcuts, or they just prefer certain programs on one OS. But it's not all about functionality though. Apple's design looks good. It always has, and some people say that that's why Macs are so popular with the creative community. If you want to look good, you get a Mac. After all, not everyone who drives a Ferrari is interested in driving at 180 miles per hour or even cares what is under the hood. They bought the car as a status symbol, just as Macs still give people a high status badge. Some people will likely deny this, but there is ample evidence out there that all around the world, Apple products are indeed a status symbol. Most critics tell us this is slowly changing though, as manufacturers of PC have concentrated more over the last few years on making machines that look cool. Now, you may be thinking, oh no, not me. You see, I'm all about security, and I'm not interested in showing off. U.S. security firm Kaspersky wrote that while indeed Macs were prone to fewer online threats as PCs were in the past, that is changing. The rising popularity of Mac operating systems in recent years has made them a prime target for cybercriminals, and Macs have subsequently fallen prey to a number of viruses, malware, and other web threats, wrote the company. It is still true though, wrote Kaspersky, that Windows machines are presently more vulnerable to viruses than Macs. So that is one very good reason to buy a Mac, even though we shouldn't have a false sense of security in light of the growing number of Mac attacks. But for now, with the majority of the world using PCs, that's where the majority of cyber attacks are focused. Another thing is the fact it's so easy to build onto your PC compared to a Mac. Apple wants to keep you in its own ecosystem, and this isn't always a good thing. It gives users fewer options, and it can add to costs. But Microsoft has its flaws too. When Windows 10 came out, it was severely criticized for being too pushy regarding advertising and for employing data tracking features in the OS that weren't always obvious. Windows 10 is spying on you became a headline for a while after the OS was released. But what are the best-selling computers of all time? Well, number one goes to the Commodore 64, released in 1982 with over 17 million units. Next was the Commodore Amiga 500, released in 1987 with 6 million units, MSX, released in 1983 with 5 million units, and Sinclair ZX Spectrum, released in 1982 with 5 million units. 1977's Apple II sold 1 million units, and 1988's iMac sold around 800,000 units. Historically, PCs reign supreme over Mac. For 2017, when we look at total PC sales against Mac sales, Apple is still a ways behind other manufacturers. Apple PC sales that year were 19.6 million, while Dell sold 41,821,000 PCs. Lenovo sold 54,857,000 PCs, and HP was on top, selling 58,800,000 PCs. If we look at quarter 1 2018, the top four are still in the same position. Apple has so far shipped 4.26 million units, Dell 9.88 million, Lenovo 12.35 million, and HP 12.86 million. Many critics out there believe that Apple must once again stun people as it's been resting on its laurels for too long. In terms of what's under the hood, Apple's machines aren't much different from what many other manufacturers release. In terms of sleekness and originality, many of Apple's foes now have machines that are almost as pleasant to the eye as the Apple machine. If Apple wants to improve its market share, it's high time they come up with a bold new design and offer improved hardware or more useful software. Finally, we might add that Windows has a far larger application library. In 2017, there were around 670,000 apps in the Windows Store and 4 million applications outside the store. The Mac App Store, by comparison, had around 30,000 apps, with some people a few years back asking if the company had given up on the store altogether. In conclusion, PCs have budget machines for all your needs, so if you're short a penny or two, then PCs win all the way. Macs are great machines though, and if you like the style and the functionality, then you should buy one. But if you're looking for power and are budget-minded, you should stick with a PC. But if you're budget-minded and want style when it comes to your grooming routine, then you should check out Dollar Shave Club. They have everything you'll need for your morning routine. We've tried their calming body cleanser, and it was the best way to start our day. Everything is super high quality and left us looking and feeling amazing. They're giving away their Daily Essential Starter Set to fans of the infographic show for only $5. This starter set features 3 trial-size versions of their most popular products that help you stay fresh and clean. In your first box, you'll receive their shave butter, body wash, and One Wipe Charlie's butt wipes. You'll also receive their executive razor, which includes their premium weighty handle and full cassette of cartridges. After the first box, replacement cartridges are sent directly to your home for only a few bucks a month. This $5 offer is available at dollarshaveclub.com/infographics or by clicking the link in the description. Get ready to look.
Okay, that is between Mac and PC, and this one is between Windows and Linux.
Getting Linux on a machine, but that's a thing of the past. Most machines you can buy today should be able to run Linux without issue. Enough of the expert commentary though. Let's see what real people who have switched from Premium free for 30 days at dashlane.com/infographics, and never forget another password and keep all your online accounts secure. Chances are you've all used a personal computer that runs the Windows operating system, but how many of you have actually used Linux? If you look at the market share of operating systems for PCs over the last few years, you'll see that Windows totally dominates the market. It's been that way pretty much since Windows came on the scene in 1985. The word Microsoft became a household name and synonymous with both home computers and operating systems. In January 2019, Windows had just over an 88% market share. Apple's Mac operating system is next with just over 9% of the share. And after that comes Linux with just a tiny share. What might surprise you though is perhaps this shouldn't really be the case. We're not going to bother explaining to you what the Windows OS is. That would be almost condescending. You've all used it, and many of you probably loved the XP version, hated Vista and Windows Me, and probably weren't too fond of Windows 8. When Microsoft released Windows 10, it said this was the last in the line of totally new versions. It would be updated forevermore. The point is, we've likely all gotten used to Windows. Using Windows is as familiar to most people as opening a window in your home. It's that familiarity and, of course, the fact that it comes pre-installed on many PCs you buy that prevents some people from crossing over the scary waters of OS change toward the little-known island of Linux. For those of you who don't know what Linux is, you can actually just go to the Linux official website and the company answers that question for you. We've done the reading, so we'll paraphrase what the company said. First of all, Linux tells us you probably do use Linux but just don't know about it. This is just one sentence from its grand opening paragraph. It's in your phones, in your cars, in your refrigerators, your Roku devices. It runs most of the internet, the supercomputers making scientific breakthroughs, and the world's stock exchanges. It's also just a regular operating system for your PC. The operating system, which most people just initialize to OS, is like the brain of the machine. Without it, the machine is pretty much useless. We don't need to tell you that these systems can be very complex, and we imagine most of you wouldn't be confident enough to say you know exactly everything you can do with your Windows OS. That's one reason people stick with what they know, because moving to a different OS is like finding yourself in a totally new environment. You have to learn the laws of a new virtual jungle, which can be exciting but also a bit frustrating at times. But get this, you can install Linux on your computer for nothing. Yes, it is absolutely free. Installing a Linux server is also free. This is what you need when you have a network of people that need serving. It isn't free if you need Windows Server OS though. Linux makes a big deal about this, and rightly so. Who doesn't like free? Linux also says its server is easy to run and that anyone can do it. Okay, so the next big point when discussing Linux is the fact that it's distributed under an open source license. What does this mean? Well, basically, you can do whatever you want with your OS, which is great for many folks since they enjoy the fact that they can study exactly how it works and make a change. Imagine you were not into a Windows feature and then thought, okay, I can do this better. I'll just rewrite the code and add something. Linux lets you do this. Linux also notes these two things, that users have the freedom to redistribute copies so you can help your neighbor. People also have the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions to others. This is why Linux users like to say they're part of a community. A common phrase is it's an OS that's run by the people for the people. The same way you can tinker under the hood of a car, Linux lets you see what's inside. Some folks like to get under the hood, that's just their nature. Linux really works for these people. So this is starting to sound too good to be true. An easy-to-use free OS that doesn't break much and one that you can alter and fiddle with and improve. Anything else? Yes, in fact there is. Linux has a lot of versions to choose from, but the company calls them distributions. So you have quite a few choices of how you want your OS to work and what your desktop will look like. When we say a few, we actually mean hundreds, if not thousands. Some are more popular than others, and if you choose, you can opt for a version that's pretty close to Windows in look and feel. If you like the Apple Mac OS, there's a Linux distribution that tries to mirror that. Another major point is that Linux is less vulnerable to attacks than Windows. Who's had a virus before? What about some particularly hard to remove malware? Who's been hit so hard they felt like taking a hammer to their blue screen of death? Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute here, if Linux is basically an open source system, surely it must be vulnerable to attacks. Well, we are told by the security experts that Linux is actually harder to gain access to, so fewer files can be corrupted. It's a long story, but the way Linux is designed makes it less likely to suffer from viruses. It can happen, but it happens a lot less than on the average computer using Windows. Of course, there's also the fact that Windows is way more popular, so of course, that's the system people want to hack. We're also told that running a Linux OS requires less power, so in other words, you could run the system on an older computer. So it's reliable, easy to run, allows you to choose from many distributions, allows developers to fiddle around, and it's free. So come on, there must be a downside because hardly anyone in the world uses it compared to Windows. Something just doesn't add up here. Well, Windows being so huge means it has much more software you can run on it. There are thousands of programs you can run on Linux for free, and you can even get Windows software on Linux. With a bit of effort, you can even have your beloved Microsoft Word running on your Linux machine. But in all, Windows offers a much wider variety of software. What about the hardware supporting software? Well, it's said in the past you might have had trouble getting Linux on a machine, but that's a thing of the past. Most machines you can buy today should be able to run Linux without issue. Enough of the expert commentary, though. Let's see what real people who have switched from Windows to Linux have to say. The most popular comment on one Reddit thread was, at the end of the day, the Linux community wants to make software, and Microsoft wants to make money. When those goals are opposed, Linux becomes the better choice. In fact, a lot of the people who now use Linux say that they're very happy they made the change, and mostly for the reasons we have talked about today. Another person wrote, updates not bugging you, it's faster, no spyware, runs well on older machines, tons of variety, and penguins. He likes penguins. Another person wrote, it's free, as in freedom. No stupid licenses that tell you can't use your computer the way you want to. You're free to use it for any purpose, change it, redistribute it, and to distribute the changes you make. It's software that's useful for society. We didn't see many negative comments for Linux, but one person said when it comes to gaming, Windows is better, as the games are designed to run on Windows. He also said that as Windows 10 is the entire deal, Microsoft is focused on making it the perfect environment. It's coherent, he said, whereas the Linux world is massive, and for some people, that can be confusing. Actually, when it comes to Linux and gaming, you can find many forums with people arguing about this. This is what one very popular gaming website said. Yes, Linux is a decent operating system for gaming, especially since the number of Linux-compatible games is increasing due to Valve's SteamOS being based on Linux. However, we would still advise anyone who doesn't need any of the advanced features that Linux has to offer to stick with Windows due to its ease of use and fewer compatibility issues with games. So, with all this positivity being spoken about Linux, why is its market share not even 2%? You can read tech websites where real computer nerds talk about this, and you'll see people saying that Linux really should be ascending faster than it is. But actually, one developer said what we've just said, in that Linux is just far too fragmented. He also just said the obvious in that it just hasn't gained momentum yet. And well, Microsoft has a PR machine that's virtually unstoppable. This is not to say, however, that Windows is bad. Not at all. And Windows 10 has been, for the most part, very well received. As we said at the beginning, Windows has been part of people's lives for many years. People know what they're working with, and even though Linux offers similar alternatives, a lot of people don't want to make the effort to change. There's also the case for a long time people haven't gone over to Linux because they thought it was only for people who knew a lot about computers. That using it might take some amount of computer savvy. There is no doubt that people will have to do some learning, and as we already said, you're entering a different jungle. But no, you don't have to be a computer science major to use a Linux computer. That said, some people just don't want to have to learn something new. And on top of that, if a computer comes with a pre-installed version of Windows and works well enough, why on earth would they go through the effort to change? No matter which you choose, Windows, Linux, or even a different OS altogether, one threat is constant: hackers. And it's not just big companies that are at risk, but everyday people like you and me. And in fact, you might be a bigger target than a company with professional security. That's why you need Dashlane. Think of them as your own personal cyber bodyguard in a dangerous cyber world, and the one and only tool you need to keep safe online. We now make sure our whole team is secured by Dashlane, with a VPN, password generator, and breach alerts to let you know when your logins suffer breaches or hacks. Dashlane actively works to protect you across all your devices and online accounts, so you can rest easy. Head on over to www.dashlane.com/infographics for a free 30-day trial, and if you use the coupon code INFOGRAPHICS, you can get 10% off a premium subscription today.
Okay. Ayan. Okay. So, ano natutunan nyo?
Welcome to the tutorials on Linux. This is first of the 18-part video series helping you become a Linux Pro. So let's get started. So what is an operating system?
Bigla na ganun. Okay. Nasa na yung ating class eh. Okay. Right. So, anong narinig nyo doon? Nakagamit na ba kayo ng ng Linux or Mac OS? Ayan. Yun siguro ang magandang tanong kasi OS yung pag-uusapan natin. Stop sharing. Okay. Sino sa inyong nakagamit na ng Linux? Taas ang kamay. Wala pa? Wala pang Linux sa inyo? Anong masasabi mo? Tama ba yung sabi nila doon sa Madali ba siyang gamitin?
Kung basic lang, pero hindi po siya. Parang may pong may mga mahirap pa rin na concept na kailangan aralin po. Pero kung yun nga, basic lang po, which is web browsing, document writing, pretty much madali na lang po. Pero kung may po yung gustong kunin na software, probably parang konti lang po yung available. Pero kung meron man po, may mga software po. Like, for example, Microsoft Office. Wala pong MS Office po sa ang meron lang po sa isang open source alternative po. Yung pinaka-common po is yung LibreOffice. And yun din po, to understand po yung mga configurations po. Depende po kasi sa bawat distribution ng Pocket kanina. Sobrang na pong distribution. May mga distribution po katulad ng OpenSUSE na sobrang comprehensive ng settings na bibigyan in a graphical format. Pero yung iba is sobrang sparse ng graphical settings sila na para map yung mga configurations. Kailangan po talaga delve into mga configuration files na system. Dapat po maalam po sa third na configure those. Pero ilang po, I guess maganda po siya sa mga talaga gustong mga likod. Pero yung mga basic pa, hindi po siya kayang i-like.
Hindi siya pang mass, yung pang everyday user.
Sa ngayon po, hindi po.
Hindi talaga.
Pero baka soon po, hindi lang talaga.
Medyo matatagalan pa yan kasi naging very user-friendly kasi yung Windows eh. Ako, nakagamit ako pero hindi Linux, Unix. Dahil dun sa Olivares, nagkaroon ng issue ng licensing. Yung mga Windows operating system nag-expire na. Kailangan dun sa laboratory ng patatakbuhin yung mga ginagawang application. So, wala kaming choice kundi gumamit ng Unix. medyo mas mahirap siyang mas mahirap siyang gamitin kaysa yung Linux. Hindi ako makapagbigay ng comparison kasi yun nga, Unix yung ginamit namin para doon sa ini-implement na Maganda rin sana pang testing. Dito kasi sa mga application na ginagawa ko, ang pan-testing ko lang, dalawa lang. Yung para sa yung Mac OS, meron akong Mac OS dito. OS X, no. Para din lang siyang Windows. Ang pinagkaiba lang yung mga control keys. Yung mga control keys na ginagamit mo sa sa Windows. Yung iba hindi gumagana. No? So, yung mga shortcut keys. For some reason. Siguro kailangan ko lang i-set up doon sa OS ng Mac. Ayan. Kasi mostly, sa totoo lang, doon sa mga implementation na ginawa ko, yun lang talaga yun lang dalawa na ang very useful. Except for halimbawa platform. Kung ang platform ay Android or iOS, ayan, iba pa yun, no? Na operating system. So, pagdating doon, kahit naman sa ang unit, pwede, no? Basta meron kang may install na mobile platform na kung saan mo i-develop yung system. So, sa experience ko, mas madali talaga sa Windows kasi yung mga application na ginagawa namin, usually tumatakbo talaga siya sa Windows. Lalo na yung enterprise ng ng CRM ng Microsoft. So wala siya talagang ibang i-accept kundi pa rin Microsoft pa rin kaya mostly yung trabaho ko puro lahat testing ng using Windows platform instead na Mac OS. Pero ginagamit ko yung testing ng Mac OS pagka yun sa mga iPad kasi may mga application kami na ginagawa naka-iPad. So, meron kaming iOS na tinetest. So, pero pagdating sa performance, mas mabilis pa rin ang Windows. Pagdating sa mobile platform, yung Windows Phone, kumpara sa iOS, mas mabilis sa iOS, no? So, yung mga application na ginagawa namin na mobile ang platform na naka iOS, mas madali siyang i-test. Pagdating sa performance, mas maganda. So, yun. Mai-share ko lang sa inyo. Okay. Sino pa, bukod kay Ken, yung nakapag-try na mamit halimbawa ng Linux or macOS? Compared nyo sa Windows. Anybody's experience. So, yan yung topic natin We're gonna look at operating system. Delve into it. Yan pa yung pwedeng mag-share dyan. Sino ba yung like kong naririnig dito na mahilig mag-experiment bukod kay Ken? Joseph, nakapag-try ka na ba ng ibang OS?
Opo.
Ano?
Halos lahat po.
Halos lahat. So, anong masasabi mo base dun sa experience mo in terms of performance? Ayan.
May mga distributions po ng Linux na same compatibility po sa interface ng both iOS at Macintosh at Windows po. Pero kulang lang sila ng user parang user experience. Ayun lang ako lang ng Linux. Kasi mababa yung user base nila.
Wala man tayo magagawa dun sa user base na ano eh, dahil ang adoption talaga ng open source medyo siguro sa mga corporate lang na ano kung yun ang ano nila, yun ang usually ginagamit nila. Yeah. Ano pa? Bukod sa distribution, ang napansin mo?
Kasi puro problems sa compatibility doon. Siguro on my case. Pero sa gaming, may ibang OS na nag-post din ng ano. Para hindi lahat, pero meron. Hindi ka masyadong tinignan mo.
Meron bang gaming na prepared na operating system ang gamit?
Wala po, pero ano yung Ubuntu, medyo compatible siya. Hindi sobrang compatible, pero medyo.
Pero na-try ko yung Ubuntu, okay siya. Hindi siya masyadong mahirap gamitin. Joseph, umihina yung ano mo.
Kuyatek.
Ah.
Ay,
Okay. Ito pa isa gusto ko marinig. Si ano, how about si Juan Paul. Juan, nasa na yun? Ba't parang nawala? Ayan, si Juan Paulo.
Hi, ma'am. Windows pala ako nagtatry.
Windows lang talaga. Sino pa ba dito? How about si Clarissa? Meron ka bang na-try na iba?
Wala po po.
Wala.
Bukod sa Windows po.
Bukod sa Windows. Sino pa ba? Sino pa bang naririnig ko dito? Si Josiah. What about Josiah?
Wala din po. Windows lang po.
Windows lang
Mostly.
talaga. What about si Jocel? Jochel.
Windows lang din po.
Si Kian.
Windows lang din po, ma'am.
Windows lang. Si Rogelio. Last na si Rogelio. Hindi ako makapili ng ng tamang Si Collis. Collis. Anong meron sa'yo? Rogelio. Ay. Anong meron? Ano pong gagawin, ma'am? Hindi mo alam ang tinatanong. Nakikinig ka ba? Ikaw, Collis, ha? Baka ako meron kang ibang nagamit na OS bukod sa Windows. Yun ang tanong. Ayan. O, sige. Okay. So, pasukan na natin tong ating discussion, no? Okay. I-share ko na yung ating hindi ito. Yung isa. Ayan. So, dito sa operating system, ito yung ating pag-uusapan, no? Yung functions niya, yung types ng operating system, meron siyang scheduling, merong long-term scheduling, medium scheduling, short-term scheduling, tapos yung x86 memory or yung 32-bit, no? Yung address niya, segmentation, paging, and then memory management, and ARMN. Yan. So, yun yung pag-uusapan natin dito sa operating system. Okay. So, speaking of operating system support, Ito raw po yung computer hardware and software structure, no? So, nagsisimula siya sa application programs, papasukan ng library and utilities. And then you have operating system. Then you have execution hardware. And then, meron ditong bus, yung system bus. And memory translation. And then yung ating input-output devices, and then the main memory, no? So yung ating application program interface, nagsisimula siya sa application program, no? Dun sa area ng software. And then yung ating application binary interface, naandun din siya sa software. Yung instruction set ng architecture, still part siya ng OS, no? Ng software, no? Which is dun sa operating system. So, ito yung ating pinaka interface ng application, no? Between the hardware and the computer software. Now, here we have the operating system. So, ano yung services na meron sa OS, no? We have the program execution, program creation, access sa I/O devices, control ng access file, system access, error detection and response, at saka accounting. Yung accounting, yun yung kung saan mina-manage yung system, no? So, ito yung services na meron sa ating operating system, no? That includes how you manage the hardware, no? Doon sa interface ng OS. Ayan. Now, let's look at the interfaces, no? The key typical interfaces of computer system. Ayan. Meron tayong ISA.
Ma'am,
Yes.
parang iba po yung nakashare.
Iba? Teka.
Number system. Chapter ng number system po.
Uy, layo ko na. Nantay ka. Iba yung nakashare. Okay. Sige, entire na lang para ayan. Okay. Entire screen na lang para hindi na malito. Ayan. Ayan, okay na? Okay. Buti sinabi
Yes,
mo.
ma'am.
Salamat, salamat. Ayan. Okay, so again, ito yung ating interface between the software and the hardware, no? Okay. Ayan. Hindi ko na ulitin. Narinig niya na naman. Ayan. Tapos, ito yung services na meron sa ating operating system. Ayan. So, program execution, program creation, access ng input-output devices, control ng access, system access, error detection, and accounting. So, back tayo dun sa interfaces. So, we have 3 key interfaces on a typical computer system. Meron tayong ISA, which is the Instruction Set Architecture, Application Binary Interface, ABI, and the Application Programming Interface, which is your API. Ito yung lagi nating ginagamit pag tayo ay nagpo-program, no? Ito yung API, yung kasundo ng ating development tool, no? So, lagi itong tinatanong, ano ba ang gamit mo na API? Ano ba nakalagay? Ayan, no? So, dito tumatakbo yung ating mga programming tool katulad ng mga Visual Studio, yung ating .NET, yung ating Java, ayan. Okay. So, what is ISA? The Instruction Set Architecture, no? Ayan. ISA defines the machine language instruction that a computer can follow. It sets also the boundary between the hardware and the software, no? So, pagdating sa instruction set ng hardware, okay? So, yung nagmamanage nun ay yung ISA, no? Next, yung ating application binary interface. So, it defines the standard of binary portability across program. Okay. So, it defines the system call interface to the operating system and the hardware resources and services available in the system through the use of the ISA, no? So, tumatakbo si ISA kay ABI. Again, okay, so, kaya nga tayo nag-aaral ng assembly, no? Yung pinaka nitty-gritty sa pinaka basic, no? So, yung ating namang operating system, yan ay nanggaling sa simula ng basic, no? So, paano siya ginawa, no? Kinode siya manually before using binary system, no? So, dito it's the same, sa binary system, tumatakbo yung ating ISA, yung isinesend na instruction, no? So, bawat code natin, imagine natin, tumatakbo yan in zeros and one, no? Kaya, ito yung tinatakbuhan niya, no? Application binary interface. Siya yung nag-i-interpret. Ini-interpret ni ISA, okay, ang pinaka-base yung ating ABI. And then, ito nga yung ating application program interface, no? API, gives the program access to hardware resources and services available in the system, no? Through the user ISA, supplemented in a high-level library calls, no? Using API enables application software to be ported easily to the other system and that support the same API. Okay. So, dito nagiging, yan yung pinaka-base para dun sa mga pinapatakbo nating application pag naggagawa tayo ng program, pag nagko-code tayo, ito yung base nyo, no? Tinatanong, ano ba yung application programming interface? Ayan. Okay. Next, operating system as resource manager. Ayan. Okay. So, tanungin nga natin. Pwede po bang may magbasa? Ayan. Okay. So, since si Rogelio Collis yung tinawag kong last. Okay. So, nagtatanong ka kung anong gagawin. Sige. Magbasa ka muna. Okay. So, nakikita mo ba yung screen, Rogelio? Pakibasa nga yung operating system as resource manager. Nakikita? Nakikita po?
Ay, wala daw.
Wala? Hindi nakikita?
Ay, nakikita po pero wala po siya.
Wala siyang audio? Okay. Bakit wala kang audio? Nako, wala pa rin. Okay. So, tawagin natin si Mary Ann. Ayan, si Mary Ann na lang.
Operating system as resource manager. A computer is a set of resources for the movement, storage, and processing of data and for the control of these functions. The OS is responsible for managing these resources. The OS as a control mechanism is unusual in two respects. The OS functions in the same way as ordinary computer software. It is a program executed by the processor. The OS frequently relinquishes control and must depend on the processor to allow it to regain control.
Okay. So, in essence, as usual naman talagang yung ating operating system, ano, yan yung talagang nagmamanage ng resources sa ating dan sa system, no? It's very easy to see, no? Doon pa lang sa ating task manager, no? Malalaman nyo na, no? Na talagang siya yung nagtitingin ng nagba-manage, no? Dito pa lang sa makikita nyo na, no? So, you have there the performance, no? Andyan yung sa CPU, sa memory, sa disk. So, hawak niya lahat doon sa OS natin, no? Makikita nyo yan, pati yun sa GPU, no? And then, dito sa ating services, makikita nyo rin dyan, no? Pwede siyang i-manage kung alin ang mga services na ginagamit ng application na pwede mong i-stop, no? So, nasa kanya talaga. Siya yung nag-act as resource manager. Ayan. Okay. Next. Salamat. Okay. So, this is the operating system as resource manager, no? So, ito yung kanyang representation, no? Dyan sa computer system, naandan yung operating system, naandan yung programs ng data, andyan din yung processor, andyan yung mga controller, ayan. And then doon sa I/O device, siya rin yung may hawak niyan, no? Okay. Siya rin yung nagpapagalaw kung ano yung i-display mo in terms of your display, no? At saka kung ano yung gumagalaw dun sa yung keyboard, no? Nasa I/O controller. Ayan. So, yeah, it is the resource manager, no? Next, the types of operating system. Ayan. Let's see. Okay. Sino ba yung pwede kong tawagin? Ayan. Okay. Tawagin natin si Ibel. Ibel. Yung ating operating system types.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, pakibasa.
Types of operating system. Interactive system. The user or programmer interacts directly with the computer to request the execution of a job or to perform a transaction. User may, depending on the nature of the application, communicate with the computer during the execution of the job. Batch system. Opposite of interactive. The user's programmer is batched together with programs from other users and submitted by a computer operator. After the program is completed, results are printed out for the user.
Okay. So, ito po yung ating types ng operating system. Meron tayong interactive, no? So, ayan, no? Depende yan sa ginagamit na application. Yung ating Windows, that's very interactive, no? And then batch system, opposite of interactive, no? The user program batch together with programs from other users. So naka-batch siya, no? One after the other. So yung mga naka-batch system na operating system, mostly yan yung tumatakbo siya sa background, no? Tulad nung pinapatakbo sa yung mga lumang system, katulad nung tumatakbo ng naka-MS-DOS nung ayan, MS-DOS, that's a batch system, that's an operating system, by the way. Yeah, ayan. And then you have early system, no? Ito yung mga noong 1940s and 1950s. Sige nga, basahin natin. Sinong pwede kong tawagin? Titingnan natin. Si Jeremiah. Jeremiah. Pakibasa yung ating early systems.
Hello?
Yes.
Early systems. From the late 1940s to the mid-1950s, the programmer interacted directly with the computer hardware. There was no OS. Processors were run from a console consisting of display lights, toggle switches, some form of input devices, and a printer. Problems. Scheduling. Sign-up sheets were used to reserve processor time. This could result in wasted computer idle time if the user finished early. If problems occurred, the user could be forced to stop before resolving the problem. Setup time. A single program could involve loading the compiler plus the source program into memory, saving the compiled program, loading and linking together the object, program, and common functions.
Okay. So, itong mga nakikita nyong problema, yan po yung kung mapapansin nyo, you have their linking, you have their putting together, compile, and then yung object, no? Ilo-load mo siya, no? Wala kayong napapansin, parang assembly language yan, 'di ba? So, ayan. So, yun po yung common na gamit ng early system, no? Naka MS-DOS yan, no? Naka super basic yung mga Fortran, ayan, no? So, ang usual na problem dyan is yung loading time, medyo mabagal kasi nga hindi pa siya ganun ka-extensive. Bakit siya mabagal? Kasi nagko-compile ka, nagli-link ka, no? Naglo-load ka, sunod-sunod dyan, hindi katulad ngayon, pwedeng hindi na ganun kabagal, no? In yung mga latest natin ngayon na compiler, no? May kasama na, no? Ito, as in mano-mano talaga, no? Ayan, doon sa ating mga early system. Katulad ng ating assembly na ginagawa ngayon, nagagawin ngayon, no? Ayan. So, memory layout of a resident monitor, you have their interrupt processing, device manager, job sequence, naka-computer language interpreter, no? Naka-ano siya sa monitor, makikita mo sa monitor. Tapos, ang boundary niya dun sa user program area. Ito po yung memory layout ng ating resident monitor, no? From the view of the processor, ito yung makikita natin, no? Kung ang ayan, yung Fortran na sinasabi ko sa inyo, no? Okay, basahin nga natin. Tawagin natin si G. Bacaro. Yung ating from the view of the processor.
Hello?
Yes.
Rinig po.
Oo, rinig. Teka, lilipat ko. Okay.
From the view of the processor, processor executes instructions from the portion of main memory containing the monitor. These instructions cause the next job to be read in another portion of main memory. The processor executes the instruction in the user's program until it encounters an ending or error condition. Either event causes the processor to fetch its next instructions from the monitor program. The monitor handles setup and schedule. A batch of jobs is queued up and executed as rapidly as possible with no idle time. Job control language. Special type of programming language used to provide instructions to the monitor. Monitor or batch operating system is simply a computer program. It relies on the ability of the processor to fetch instructions from the various portions of main memory in order to seize and relinquish control alternately.
Okay. Okay, so dito sa ating from the view of the processor, yun nga sabi ko nga sa inyo, yung ating example na Fortran, no? So naka-batch na instruction, no? So yung saan to ini-execute, no? Ini-execute from the processor, no? So naka-fetch siya na yung event, sunod-sunod siya na ginagawa. So, makikita mo yung instruction sa, mamonitor mo yung instruction sa program, no? Yung batch job niya, executed, no? One after the other, no? Naka-queue, no? So, naka-JCL siya, special type of programming language used to provide instruction to the monitor, no? So, naka-job control. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng JCL. So, naka-queue. So, pag nakita mo tong $JOB, katulad dito sa Fortran, no? FTN load, no? Yan yung way para makita mo na naka-batch siya, no? Yung view niya sa processor, no? Sunod-sunod, no? Ayan. Okay. So, next, desirable hardware features. Ito raw yung mga desirable, no? Na gusto nating mag-exist dun sa ating ginagamit na OS. Okay. Okay, basahin nga natin si Charmaine Corpus.
Desirable hardware features. Memory protection. User program must not alter the memory area containing the monitor. The processor hardware should detect an error and transfer control to the monitor. The monitor aborts the job, prints an error message, and loads the next job. Ate po ba yung timer mo?
Yes, diretso mo lang.
Okay po. Timer used to prevent the job from monopolizing the system. If the timer expires, an interrupt occurs and control returns to monitor. Privileged instructions can only be executed by the monitor. If the processor encounters such an instruction while executing a user program, an error interrupt occurs. I/O instructions are privileged, so the monitor retains control of all I/O devices. Interrupts gives the OS more flexibility in relinquishing control to and regaining control from user programs.
Okay. So, ito raw yung mga desirable hardware features, no? So, ayan. So, yung importante yan, no? You have memory protection, no? This is the part where the program must alter the memory area containing the monitor. Ayan. Processor hardware should detect the error and transfer control to the monitor. The monitor aborts the job and prints an error message and loads the next job. So, meron tayong memory protection. That's one. Number 2, meron timer, no? It is used to prevent a job from monopolizing the system, no? If the timer expires, an interrupt occurs and control and returns to the monitor. No, simply put, ito yung timer na sinasabi niya lang na nakagamit ka na ng excessive time dun sa dun sa system, no? So yun yung mga interrupt na binibigay para hindi niya gamitin solely yung control dun sa monitor, no? Ayan, so may timer. Makikita nyo yan sa system pagka naglalag na yung ginagawa ng application, no? May na dyan, sasabihin na sa'yo, no? Doon sa UI, sasabihin sa'yo na this is already lagging and it will cease. Sasabihin niya, tatapusin niya na yun kasi namomonopolize niya na yung paggamit ng memory sa system, no? And then you have privilege instruction, no? Can only be executed by the monitor and if the processor encounter an instruction, no? Ayan. Okay. So, ibig sabihin dun sa pag may inutos na ilabas dun sa input and output, no? Privilege lang yon, no? Sa kanya lang nanggagaling yung instruction. And then you have your interrupts. It gives OS more flexibility. Okay, so importante rin yung interrupt para pwede mong i-relinquish yung control, no? Ayan. So, ano ba yung mga form ng interrupts, no? Ano ba yung ginagawa nyo para ma-interrupt nyo yung yung system, no? Lalo na pagka anong ginagawa nyo? Anong ginagawa nyo pagka gusto nyo i-interrupt yung system? Ano yung control? Yung mga system administrator dyan, anong ginagawa nyo para ma-interrupt nyo yung halimbawa, interrupt natin tong Adobe. Anong gagawin natin? Anong ginagawa? End task. Okay, madali lang yan dito, no? I-end task mo lang dito, no? Pag halimbawang meron kang gustong i-end, anong ginagawa? Anybody? Yung mga system administrator dyan, lagi niyong ginagawa to. Anong instruction? Hello? Pag gusto nyong i-shutdown yung computer ng madalian, anong ginagawa? That's one form of interrupt.
Alt F4 po, ma'am.
Ha?
Alt F4?
Alt F4? Anong nangyayari pag nag-Alt F4?
Mag-e-exit po, ma'am, yung application.
Mag-e-exit yung application. Pagka kayo, nag-i-install ng OS para makarating kayo sa Simus ba yun? Para i-direct mo siya. Anong ginagawa? Ano yung iba-iba yung kada kada laptop or kada device. Merong F8. Etong Asus ko, F8 yung ginamit ko. para makapasok doon sa CMOS. Doon sa ibang device, may F10, merong F11, may F5. No? So, ini-interrupt mo siya para makapasok ka doon sa system para i-give way doon sa kung saan mo siya i-assign para doon sa ating mga I/O, no? Okay. Ayan. So, yan yung mga hardware features, no? Meron kang control sa protection, sa timer, sa privilege instruction, at saka sa interrupt, no? Tapos, ginagawa nyo rin yun, ano? Pag gusto nyo i-shutdown, Control-Alt-Delete. Pagka meron kang application na naglalag, meron ba sa inyong gano'n ang ginagawa? Pagka, halimbawa, nakahang na, anong ginagawa? Pe-press yung yung shutdown button. Tapos na. Ayan, that's one way of interrupt also. Pero pwede rin naman yung Control-Alt-Delete. Ayan. Ayan, yung ating mga ginagawa para maano yung natin, yung ma-interrupt natin yung ating system, no? Okay, so this is the system utilization example, no? You have here read one record, that's 15 per ano ba yung U? Ano ba yung sabihin ng U? US, no? Ano yung U na yun? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng U na yun? Alimutan ko na ibig sabihin itong U na to. Ano ba yung symbol na yan? And then execute 100 instruction. Write one record, naka 15 US, and then total of 13 US, no? Utilization, siguro to utilization to. Percent utilization, that is 3.2%, no? So, ito yung CPU utilization example. Ayan. Okay. CPU utilization. Dito sa natin, makikita mo yung utilization ng ng CPU. Tingnan mo, dito pa lang. Saan na yung performance? Ayan. Ito yun sa CPU utilization. Nasa 69, 66, 72, 74. Ayan yung ating utilization, no? Okay. So, ito po yung ating multi-programming example, no? Multi-programming example, no? Meron tayo ditong sample, program A. Ang run niya, meron siyang wait, tapos run and wait, and time, from run to wait. Yan yung unit programming, no? So, pagka multi-programming with two programs, nagko-combine na nagra-run, yung A at B, no? Tapos may wait siya. Ayan. So, ito yung multi-programming example, no? Pwedeng magsabay-sabay pagdating sa paggamit sa processor, no? Then, you have here a sample program execution attributes. Okay? So, ito yung type ng job. Job 1, heavy compute. Job 2, heavy I/O. Job 3, heavy I/O, no? Duration, 5 minimum, 15 minimum, 10 minimum. Memory required, no? 10. Ayan. Need this, thermal. Okay, may printer. Ayan. Sample ng program execution. Kung gusto nyo makakita ng sample program execution, dito pa lang makikita nyo na, no? Okay? Dito sa ating processes. Halimbawa, ayan. So, makikita nyo yung Google. Nakikita nyo ba yung yung task manager ko dito?
Apa.
Okay. Apa. So, doon pa lang sa, makikita nyo na yung ating program dito si Google. Makikita nyo na kung gaano kalaki ang kinakain niya pagdating sa CPU, sa memory, sa disk, at saka sa network, no? Ayan. So, since yan ang tumatakbo ngayon, siya, nasa kanya yung ayan. Yan ating operating system. Okay. So, effects of multi-programming on resource utilization. Siyempre, mataas, no? Kasi nga, multi-programming. Ang multi-programming natin, meaning, meron tayong multiple na program na pinapatakbo, no? So, katulad dito sa ating task manager, at the moment, no, marami tayo, multiple yung ating mga programs na tumatakbo. We have, dito sa aking PC ngayon, no, meron akong Google Chrome. Yung Malwarebytes ko, tumatakbo rin, no. Yung Crisp, ayan. Okay. Ba tumatakbo pala tong Spotify ngayon, no? And also, of course, yung task manager, no? So, ayan. Yung resource utilization niya, yung throughput, tsaka response time, ayan, makikita nyo, no? Okay, 10 minutes. Tingnan natin yung ating, no? Dito, percentage, no? Tingnan natin sa performance, no? Pagdating sa CPU, ayan. Start, details. Services. Details. Acrobat. Running. User time. User memory. Ayan. Utilization. Memory. Physical memory. 64K. Yung nasan yung ating Google? Ayan. Google Chrome. Yung ano niya, active. Memory active. Okay, physical memory process, no? So, yan yung kinakain niya na space, no? Doon pa lang sa Google Chrome, no? Makikita niyo na doon sa ating, ito, output na to, no? Dito sa processes, ayan. Okay. So, ito yung, sa processor niya, CPU, 44% kada, no? And then 21%. So ina-allocate niya, no? Yan yung resource utilization. Meron tayong allocation kada doon sa ating multi-programming, no? Ayan. And then utilization histograms, ito yung gamit sa CPU, sa memory, sa disk, sa thermal, sa printer. Ayan. Kung gusto niyan, ito yan. Okay, performance, yan yun, no? Okay. Gusto mo makita yun sa CPU, dito yun sa memory, no? Naka-histogram siya. Ayan, disk. Okay. So, yan yung ating memory management, makikita nyo. Then, you have time sharing. Okay. So, dito sa time sharing system, okay, pabasa po. Si Yan Nicole Casilian. Pabasa yung time sharing. Okay.
Time sharing systems used when the user interacts directly with the computer. Processor's time is shared among multiple users. Multiple users simultaneously access the system through terminals, with the OS interleaving the execution of each user program in a short burst or quantum of computation. Example, if there are n users actively requesting service at one time, each user will only see on the average 1/n of the affected computer's speed.
Okay. So, siya, no? Naka-sharing. This is dito yan sa sa batch processing, no? Makikita niyo yung time sharing sa batch processing, and this is an efficient way to process jobs, kung maraming jobs, para yun sa interaction mas madaling i-assign, no? So mag-iintay siya kasi naka-queue. So mostly ito ay dun sa ating naka-batch, para dun sa ating processor, alam niyo yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng kung sino yung i-allow niya dun sa pagre-request ng user. Ayan. Okay. Batch programming versus time sharing. Okay. Dun sa multi-programming, kumpara sa time sharing, kung ang principal objective mo ay paggamit ng processor, okay, mas maganda doon sa batch multi-programming. kaysa doon sa time sharing na nami-minimize yung response time. Now, doon sa source, kung halimbawa doon naman sa source directive ang ang operating system, yung job control niya ng language ng command na ipino-provide dun sa job, mas maganda, no? Kaysa doon sa time sharing na ang commands ay entered sa terminal, no? Ayan. So, kumpara dito sa dalawa, mas maganda pa rin yung time sharing, no? Kasi pwede mo siyang i-allocate. Doon sa batch kasi, you have to run it one after the other, no? Pero may job control ka. Yun nga lang, hindi siya pwedeng naka-queue kasi yan sunod-sunod siya na na gagawin. Hindi katulad nun sa pwede mong i-allocate yung time. Kaya mas maganda pa rin yung time sharing. Ayan. Okay. This is the types of scheduling, no? So meron tayong long term, medium term, short term, at saka IO scheduling. Ayan. So yung long term scheduling, the decision to add pool to the process to be executed, no? So naka-schedule siya, ina-add siya one after the other as it is executed, no? Okay. And then you have a midterm scheduling. The decision to add a number of processes that are partially and fully in the main memory. Sige. Diyan ka lang huwag kang makulit. Okay. And then you have, talaga naman, pasok ka agad, doon ka agad sa nangangagat ka, And then you have short-term scheduling, no? The decision as to which available process will be executed by the processor, no? And then you have IO scheduling, the decision to which the process pending IO request shall be handled by an available IO device. So, yung pagpaprocess, ang tawag dyan ay multics, no? Noong 1960s, para dun sa scheduling, somewhat this term, now a term process called including program execution. Ito na yung program execution, no? Okay. Yung scheduling, pwede kasi yan na nakaschedule, no? Dun sa mga devices na halimbawa, lalo na sa server, pwede mo siyang iset yung schedule kung ang OS mo naka-server type. Actually, pwede rin naman dito sa ating sa ating OS, no? Pwede mong iset yung schedule pagka halimbawang hindi busy, no? Tulad ng mga updates, pwede mong iset yung schedule ng hindi ka masyadong gamit, no? I-remind ka na lang na meron kang updates. Halimbawa, i-access natin yung Windows update. Windows update settings. Tingnan natin. So, ayan, no? So, meron siyang nakalagay dito, no? Pwede mo siyang iset dito kung kailan, no, titingnan. Okay? Katulad nito, yung download install. Ito yung cumulative review for Windows 10. So, hindi siya agad naka-ready lang dito, no? Kasi isinet up ko ito na pwede mo siyang gawin at a certain time, or pwedeng nakatenga lang siya dyan, tapos saka mo na lang siya gagawin pag hindi ka busy. Usually kasi pagka-update, malaki ang kain nito sa space at saka sa system, no? Pati sa memory, at maglalag yung nyo, no? So, maganda na i-schedule mo siya. Ayan. Okay. So, yan yung mga types ng scheduling, no? Okay. And then, you have, ayan, long-term scheduling. Iinisa-isa yung ating scheduling, no? Ayan. Yung long-term scheduling, it determines which program are submitted for processing. Once submitted, the job becomes a process. for short-term schedule, and then the process is newly created and then naka-batch. Darating siya sa batch, papasok sa time sharing. Okay. Kung kailan siya i-execute. And then you have midterm and short-term scheduling, no? Nagswaswap siya ng function. Short-term meaning yan yung i-execute ka agad, no? Ayan. And then next, ito yung 5-state process model. This is a state where the lifetime process status will change a number of times, no? At any point, no? From the term state to the minimum and 5 different states dito sa ating figure, no? So yung ating 5-state process, nag-start siya sa new, ready, running, exit, and block. Ayan. So, pwedeng dun sa new, mag-a-admit ka. Sa ready, i-dispatch mo. Sa running, i-release mo. Sa exit, release. And then, meron kang, dun sa gitna, meron kang iba-block. Either an event or you make it wait, no? And then, ita-time out, no? So, yan yung ating 5-state process ng process model, no? Ayan. So, the process control block, ito naman yung ating process control block. Meron tayong identifier, state, priority, program counter, memory pointers, context, I/O, no? Accounting information, no? Ayan. So, ang pinakamagandang process dyan para makita nyo yung process control block, dito pa lang sa ano, no? Sa ating task manager, makikita mo na. Pwede mo nang i-block dito kung ano man yung gusto mong i-end task mo lang, no? Katulad ng wait, hindi ko basta-basta pwede pa lang i-end task yun. To, halimbawa to, no? I-end task mo siya.